And all right. All right, I would like to thank everyone for being here this afternoon. Everyone who's joining us now and later will be able to help us out by putting their location in the chat. We are recording this for those who were unable to make it today. And in order to respect everybody's time, I would love to introduce Lee. Lee Van Dusen has over 2 decades of experience as a senior leader and as a CEO. He presents nationally and internationally on the topics of quality improvement and organizational excellence. Lee has over 25 years of experience helping organizations on their journeys to become role model businesses. He is well versed and uses the Baldrige Performance Excellence Programs framework as a method to help leaders think of their business as a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts and individual activities. Lee and I had the opportunity to meet each other through Alignable, which I know a few of you guys are a part of, just by names and faces. Alignable, for those of you who are not familiar, is an online networking website that allows you to meet up with other local and national businesses. You can find partners and clients through this networking opportunity. They have very similar, but also very, very different from LinkedIn. There are opportunities for premium memberships. You can meet up with your local groups. There is one in Richmond that I know of personally where you can meet with the ambassador of that group and participate in in-person business networking. For those of you that are in that Richmond kind of area, they will do things at Cabo Taco and Capital Ale House, for example. So without further ado, I would like to turn this over to Lee. Lee's going to present to us for about 30 minutes or so, and there will be an opportunity for questions and answers, and then there will be a couple of updates from the collective before we leave each other this afternoon. So Lee, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Christelle. I appreciate that. And one of the reasons that I reached out to Christelle originally was as I was looking through Alignable, you see different things come by, and you had a comment on a post, and I just clicked over your name to see a little bit about what you did, and it sounded very interesting to me. It's not the routine run-of-the-mill business work, client services type things that you do, and I appreciated that you responded back in the way the opportunity to connect, and I've learned a lot and probably will continue to learn a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, if all goes well here, I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Let's see if we can get this to do what we'd like it to do. Technology is a wonderful thing, and some days it just doesn't quite do what you want. Hey, there. So once again, appreciate the opportunity to meet with you folks, and I hope this is useful for you. Some of you will find this probably basic. Others may find some new information in there or something different to think about. For those of you that find it a little bit on the basic side, well, think of it as a way to sort of reaffirm things that you already know, and second source for that. Want to talk just a little bit about what business coaches do. Do not panic. Has more letters and words on it than any other slide, but just wanted to put a few things out there if you wanted to get sort of a sense of what we do in the business coaching. Often we're a resource. People can have questions when they're starting up or they're sort of reaching plateaus if they've been around a while. One of the big things we find is all of us as human beings have blind spots, and it can be very helpful to have someone from the outside sort of take a look and see what they can come up with around things to help. Accountability partner, there's a lot of that's done today in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's helpful just to have someone who's going to check in on you on a regular basis and ask, how is this going? What did you get done in this area? And maybe assign some homework once in a while. But we do a variety of things that are listed here. And these are statements from people who actually work with business coaches, is how the business coaches have helped them. So once again, this is more words than you'll ever see on any of the rest of the slides going forward. So I think there are some parallels between what we do in the coaching and consulting world of businesses and some of the things that you do. to sort of try to connect here a little bit and make sure I'm on the right track. From our coaching side of things, we ask a lot of questions and we work with people to try to help them think through where they are, where they need to be, and help them come up with the answers that make the most sense for them in their specific situations. So coaching is a lot of helping people think through where they are and where they would like to be. Consulting, on the other hand, tends to be more someone has a specific issue or a specific problem they want dealt with. And often they would like someone from the outside to come in and say, this is what you need to do. So those are two very different ends of a spectrum of how as business coaches and how probably you as end-of-life doulas interact with people. There's a lot of blending and balancing. As you've probably discovered, the more a person comes up with an idea on their own, the more likely they are to follow through with it, as opposed to someone from the outside saying, just go do this. So there's that blending and balancing. In your work as well as in mine, the needs of each client are very different and they can change over time. So there's a lot of individual work that's involved and it's heavily people focused. In addition to that, it's also helpful for all of us to be clear on what are the outcomes that we're trying to achieve for the clients that we're working with. And even though they may fall into similar general categories, they often are very specific to the individual. So I think those are some similarities between what I do on a daily basis and what you folks probably do on a daily basis. Some of you may recognize a couple of the Dr. Seuss characters here, Thing 1 and Thing 2. Question is, does your business have limited time and resources? The answer to that is yes. I have never met a business, a corporation, an individual, government that has unlimited time and resources. Everyone would like more time. Everyone would always like more resources. So with that in mind, as we go through today, I'd like you to think of maybe a thing 1 and a thing 2 that you can take away from here that you might want to work on. We're going to touch a lot of topics at a very high level. Just to give you a sense of some of the things that are out there that you might want to be thinking about or maybe focus on a little bit more if you aren't already. So don't try to do too many things here. You have limited time and resources, as do I. So think about that thing 1 or thing 2 that you'd like to maybe take away from today that you feel would be most helpful for you going forward at this point. So topics for today, got these general areas from Christelle. And 5 of them, that's a lot for the time that we have today. So we're going to be touching on things that I hope will be useful to you and things to think about and maybe some things you can consider going forward with in those particular areas. So those are the 5 areas that most businesses, yours included, are probably things that you're going to want to think about. And once again, this is going to be an overview of a variety of areas. I'm going to keep it relatively straightforward, relatively simple. In the question and answer time period at the end here, I would be happy to address anything in more detail if you'd like. So business structures, I'm not going into detail on these, just want to give you some general senses of this. Some of you probably see the category you already fit into or are thinking about fitting into. Sole proprietorship is one where it's your business and you're it. Doesn't have any particular legal structure around it. You file your taxes on your Schedule C as part of your regular stuff. Most platforms can handle that relatively easily. Relatively straightforward, easy kind of thing to do. Partnerships, a lot of people are interested in partnerships. They have a good friend they want to work with or someone they know that they think would be complementary, and partnerships of 2 or more people can be very useful things. I'm in a partnership. We're a 3-person partnership. We're a 2/3 women-owned business. KPL Coaching stands for Kimberly, Patty, and Lee. So we're not terribly innovative in our name, but it works well for us. So partnerships can be wonderful things in that you have multiple viewpoints and perspectives and different people to help share the work in different areas. Partnerships are often very challenging as well. It's like any relationship. People who go into a partnership and think it's going to be an even split all the time are probably going to have some challenges with that. There will be times where one partner is doing more than another, and that takes some getting used to, and sometimes it can be challenging depending on the individual. Partnerships are harder to maintain than sole proprietorships in general. Corporations, C Corps, S Corps, we're not going to be talking about that. Just know that stuff is out there. I don't imagine any of you are going to be heading down that path. If you are, let's talk later. Where most of you would probably end up is a sole proprietorship or as an LLC, a limited liability company. The rules around these vary a little bit from state to state, but one of the big advantages to an LLC is that it is its own entity. And as a result, and make it clear, I'm not a lawyer. It is its own entity, and it affords you some personal protection. If something goes wrong and somebody starts coming after your organization or after your assets, in a limited liability company, your assets are really defined to that. Whereas a sole proprietorship, it's possible that someone could come after other assets that you may have. Now, if you don't have any assets, it really doesn't matter which structure works best for you. And if you're in a field where not much goes wrong, it's probably an option to go as a sole proprietorship as opposed to a liability company as an LLC. I don't know how often people in your line of work are taken to court or sued by clients or relatives of clients. If that happens a lot, LLC is probably a reasonable way to go. If otherwise, you might consider sole proprietorships. And those are things that we'll share, talk a little bit more, hopefully later in the questions and answers. Question that almost always comes up, especially for folks that are in businesses or working with organizations that are about helping people. Am I a for-profit? Am I a non-for-profit? No profits? It's that's a tough question. It's a very individualized question. I would say in most cases, from what I understand of your work, you're probably fine in the for-profit space. If you're thinking about a nonprofit, I'd love to talk with you offline after this and go through some of the thoughts behind that. Often people who are thinking about a nonprofit structure are looking to have access to grants, the potential of not having some of the taxes around that in the organization. And sometimes it's based strictly on the fact that you want to help people in a specific way and you think this may be the way to do it. Nonprofits take a little bit to set up, and they take a little bit of reporting on an ongoing basis with that. And unless you're an experienced grant writer, this may not be the place to start out to try to see if you can come up with grant funding for a nonprofit that's new that you might start. As a for-profit, you can help a lot of individuals for free. You can put up nonprofit events that events that behave like nonprofits that you structure. Whether that's something like a scholarship or a free program in some areas, or free services to a certain select population. So there's a lot of things you could do as a for-profit that look like nonprofits. So I just wanted to put that out there and keep that in mind. One of the things I will suggest to you as far as business structure, have as soon as you possibly can, if you don't have it already, have a separate bank account for your business, whether that's an LLC or whether that's a sole proprietorship. The sooner and the more you can keep those funds separate from what happens in the rest of your life, the easier and the better off you'll be in the long run. Now, I mentioned banks and credit unions here. This is out of Investopedia. I'm a big fan of credit unions. I think there are a lot of advantages to that. Small local banks often can be quite helpful. For the type of business that you and I have, the top 5 big banks probably aren't going to be the most helpful for us to go and look and open accounts with, for example. Let me talk about a credit union just for a second. Our business accounts are with a credit union, and we do that because we value what credit unions do, but also it makes sense for us as a business. Our checking account requires we keep $1 in it. Our business account, our savings account requires that we keep $1 in it. We pay no fees on checking. We can move as much money in or out as we like with no fees. Both of those accounts essentially have interest once in a while on the savings account. So it's a lot less than some of what you might find in those top big banks. Chase, I'm just going to pick on them. They're one known very well as a big business bank. They have fees for a lot of the things. So if you're thinking about opening an account, look at your local banks, look at your local credit unions, and just see if there's something there that makes sense for you. So you're not having your profits eaten up by bank expenses. Just a thought, get the account as soon as you can in one or another. I would highly recommend that. And once again, not speaking against the big banks. I have personal accounts in 2 of the 5 big banks. My wife and I do. So it's everything has a place. Find what fits best in your particular business. This is an AI generated slide. I ask it to do something specific for your world on revenue streams. And this is what it came up with. So I think it sort of lacks probably some insight into the end of life doula world. But it's a good place to start, and it's something to think about. I'd like you just to consider here the cost-based ways of bringing in revenue and pricing. That's on a particular service or hourly. Subscriptions, what can you do over time with someone and have them continue to interact with you over a period of time, whether that's short or long. And advertising revenue, unless you have a really, really popular YouTube channel or something else that's out there in the social media. And most of the folks that are out there in social media don't make much of anything off from their ads as far as people wanting to buy and sell in their space. So it's out there. I thought it was interesting that this is what AI put together. I want to talk to you a little bit more about the pricing and revenue stream. Down in the right-hand corner in that image, it says success, population 98. Success is not limited to a population of 98. This is actually from a little place called Success, Arkansas. That's the name of the town. And as you can see, there's not a lot in Success, Arkansas. That is the main street coming into town. When you're thinking about pricing and you're thinking about your revenue streams, pricing really the value is in the eye of the beholder for pricing. And are you answering a question that someone is looking for an answer for? Are you filling a specific need? What is that need that you're filling? And how much are they willing to compensate you for? Now, location really makes a difference. If you're in Success, Arkansas, what you can charge and the number of clients available if you have to work face-to-face is limited. If you're in Manhattan, it's a very different story. So you sort of have to take your location and your area and the types of clients you're working with into account as you look at what pricing and revenue streams is. You need to be able to clearly articulate what it is you do and how that's of value to a person. And you can do that in ways that aren't heavily salesy. But part of that is yourself being very clear on what it is you do and how you can help people with that. And identify the need that you're filling for someone. They need to have the need. There are lots of people out there with wonderful ideas, but people can't connect to those ideas and they don't see how that relates to their life. So how are you fulfilling something that will help them? The more specific in general the population you serve, and you can identify that in your mind, generally that makes your life a lot easier. Now, when you're starting, it's very common to say, I will work with anybody, and that's okay. Do that for a time until you find the niche that you fit best into, the types of people, clients you like working with, and when you also find the things that you're really good at as well. Each one of you has slightly different skill sets, if not largely different skill sets, and you will do some things better than others. And find what your niche is and what you like to do, what you enjoy doing, and what's a reasonable approach for you. Possible revenue streams, I think there are a lot here. There's two basic types of revenue: active revenue, where you have to directly be involved in it, and passive revenue, something where you set it up and it involves a little bit of care, but for the most part, it's out there running on its own. Much of what you do, I imagine, is in the active revenue side of things. It involves your time, and you have to do something for that. Similarly, in our business, we have much of our work is individualized or it's in groups. And it involves our time, and when we're doing that, that's pretty much all we can be doing. We can't be doing something else doing that. Something like our conversation today. It's involved face-to-face interaction, so to speak, Zoom-to-Zoom interaction, and it's a matter of being that active engagement. Now, if we had taken this type of program or something similar and put it out there in formats and allowed people to access it for a reasonable fee that would provide them with some value, that could be passive income. We set it up, it's out there, it's running, it sort of does its own thing with a little bit of care from our end, but it produces revenue whether we're there or not. So those are the kinds of things you want to think about. What can you do that produces passive revenue? What can you do that produces active revenue? And there's a lot, I believe, within your area, and that's something as a collective you may want to think about and try to identify what's the list of things, because I would bet that any one of you has an idea that the other one doesn't. And the more you can share those, I think that would help you moving forward as some options for possible revenue streams. So think in terms of what's active revenue and what could be passive revenue, things that you folks could do or create and work on. Want to talk some here about marketing and client attraction a little bit. Here are some billboards I found amusing. Hopefully you, if you haven't seen them, will find some of them amusing as well. Certainly the funeral home industry is out there in marketing and client attraction. This is not necessarily the typical thing I've seen in most areas, but there's some interesting approaches and a little bit lighthearted and some things to think about as you look at some of these. Text and drive, I love that one. Should have chosen Waggly so you don't end up in the cookie jar. I think that's good. And think outside the box. I think that's nice. The lower left-hand corner there also is an advertising piece that's out of a cemetery in St. Louis. And part of the cemetery is set aside and designated for natural burials. They have, you can be buried unembalmed, no vault. It could be buried in a very simple wicker basket like this, or the individual can be buried in something like a shroud. And the area is kept natural with a little bit of upkeep, but mostly wildflowers and things that grow in that area. So they have a marketing approach to that, and part of how they do that is by showing the wonderful cart here they have with the wicker basket on it. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, places that have that type of natural burial, you may find clients that fit well with some of the services you want and their families. They may think a little bit differently about death than folks that run through often the traditional funeral home setting. So just throwing that out there, thinking about that as a potential option if you have those in your area. I know the laws on that vary from state to state as whether natural burials are allowed or not, but this is one, it's actually part of a significant size cemetery in the St. Louis area. It's one to touch on that. Some of the interesting challenges I think you folks have anyway about marketing and client attraction. Number one is you're dealing with a topic that isn't people's favorite. They don't really like talking about death or not. They have a variety, we have a variety of images about that. That image in the upper right there sort of sums it up in a lot of ways. That's what a lot of people view death like, and that's their concept of it. And they don't know what's happening before and after and around that time, not only with the individual, but with the families and the loved ones that are nearby. I love that image, how they've got that light in the window too. You hear, you think about light and death, and that's sort of interesting how they did that. That lower left corner, I think accurately captures some of the challenges that you folks probably face on a daily basis. Death doula versus hospice care. I'm sure many of you have hospice care and you can articulate that very well, what those differences are. However, most of us out here in the public probably don't have a good sense of that. Death doulas, end-of-life doulas, whichever your preferred term is, are not well known or well understood by the population. I'm right now in Galveston, where our business is based, and we're outside of Houston. Just for fun, I searched, Google search for end-of-life doula and death doula near me, and I got 0 that came up. Not a lot known out there. I got a lot of birth doulas, but no death doulas. In talking with Christelle earlier, I think she said in one of the sources she was looking at, there are 7 death doulas in that particular source that are listed in Houston. Houston is the 4th largest city in the country. You folks have a lot of room to grow, and I think that's a very positive thing. Down in the lower right-hand corner, someone that some of you probably know. I saw this picture out there on the internet. I didn't see a copyright on it, so I sort of dropped it in here. That is a very different perspective around death than the other 2 images, especially the image above it. I think there's a lot of things that you folks can do that will connect with people very personally, that allow them to understand things that you offer in ways that are different than the other 2 photos on this particular slide. Your work is very personal. It's going to make it harder in some ways. Mass advertising, like we saw earlier about the funeral homes, is probably going to be harder for you folks, because a lot of what your clients are going to want is that personal connection. They may connect really well with one of you, less so with another, and that's okay. Let them work with the person that they feel the best with. There are 80,000 of us business coaches out here in the United States, give or take. We all have different strengths and we all have different things that we can bring, and the same is true for you. I think most of what you're going to do in the client attraction side is probably going to be more direct interacting than indirect interacting. People are going to relate to you. They're going to relate to your story. They're going to relate to how you interact with them and how you make them feel. I think that's going to be one of the areas you're going to want to focus on. Now, indirect marketing, any types of social media that's out there, certainly fine for getting your name out there, getting the public educated about your profession. You're in an interesting position in that you have something that's relatively new to the general public. You may be have done this for a long time, but you're still not well known out there in the rest of the world. That's a wonderful opportunity for you folks. And some of the indirect interactions may be helpful in that. But my guess is that people are going to choose to move or not move into the space as a client based on probably an individual interaction or something through a group setting such as this. So something to keep in mind. People don't know what you do. You're going to be involved in a fair amount of education. You folks already know that. That's probably going to continue for the length span of any of you on this call, and I have no idea what the age of everybody is here, but you're a relatively young profession, and you're probably going to need to be educating people for the rest of your lives and probably at least the next generation's lives. So keep that in mind. It's not a short-term fix. It's not a quick change. You're growing a profession, not only your own business. So something to keep in mind with that. One of the ways you can do that is through your elevator pitch. These are two different elevators, one of which I'm not even sure you can get on, and the other probably has a pretty nice experience if you're actually riding on that elevator. Elevator pitches come in all different shapes and sizes and flavors. Some of them are good, some of them are really bad. So when I say your elevator pitch, I don't necessarily mean this as trying to go out and sell yourself. It's a matter of explaining what it is you do and the value in it and how it can relate to the person or group that you're talking with. So in this particular case, I would encourage you to have multiple elevator pitches. These are just little introductory things, like when you say to someone, "Hi, I'm an end-of-life doula, I'm a death doula." What follows that, or what precedes that when you talk about what it is you do? I can tell you pretty quickly, if I say I'm a business coach, that cuts off the conversation pretty quickly in most discussions. So there's usually my elevator pitch is a little bit different. And I don't have just one elevator pitch. I have several elevator pitches, and they're specific to the type of individual or the group or the setting that I'm interacting with. If I'm talking with a person who's just starting a business, that elevator pitch is very different than someone who has a very large established business. We also do some work in higher education accreditation, and the pitch in that group is also very different. So depending upon who you are and what you want to work with, you're probably going to have several different elevator pitches, and that's perfectly fine. One of the nice things about Alignable, which Christelle mentioned earlier, is that they have what they call Smart Connects, where you can go online and they have these regularly, and you can interact with about 7 people in the course of an hour. It is a great place to practice your elevator pitches. I would encourage you, if you try it there or you try it out in live people wherever you happen to be, if you can get them to go first and just say a little bit about who they are and what they do, you can tailor your elevator pitch to a little bit more about their life and how it might interact. For example, the elevator pitch you may give to someone who just got a terminal diagnosis is very different than someone who's 40 years old and concerned about what's going on in their parents' lives. So have different pitches for the different types of things that you interact with and you want to do. Also, in this marketing client attraction thing, you've got some interesting challenges. I just want to give you something that's hopefully a little bit useful for you here. I didn't notice that talking about death won't kill you, that it says copyrighted material until earlier this morning. I didn't pull it out. So think of this as a plug for Virginia Morris's book at this point. But people don't like talking about death, you know that. But people do like talking about death more than they like talking about money. Money is worse than death. So you have, money is worse than, that's an odd statement. But anyway, it's easier for them to talk about death than it is to talk about their finances. Just to give you a really quick example of this, I was talking with someone a couple of weeks ago who works with individuals and families, couples, on family budgeting and working with their money and helping them get out of debt and all the various things that are part of that financial counseling world. And when I was talking with her, I said, what do you charge for your services? And she said, we have a 1 month package, we have like a 3 month package and a year package, as an example. And she didn't answer my question. And I said, a little pretty direct at this point. So if I wanted to acquire your 3 month package, what would that cost me? Remember, this is a person who works with financial numbers for people. She said, I don't want to tell you. So here's a person who works with money, who is uncomfortable talking about money. What's the likelihood she's going to succeed in her business? Probably pretty low, unless she makes some changes about that. So if you're uncertain or concerned about talking about the money or end of your business, you're not alone. It happens even in the money business itself, so to speak. One of the things that can be helpful that doesn't feel as salesy as sometimes, for those of you that are in sales or have family members or friends that are in sales professionally, this is not a negative comment about that. My wife is in sales. But sometimes for those of us that aren't in that business, it can help to think about selling your product, so to speak, from the perspective of a server in a restaurant. We've been in restaurants where we've had our dinner, it's at the end, we've had a great time. The server will say, well, how was your meal? You say, great, hopefully in most cases. And the server then goes on to say, could I interest you in dessert or coffee? You may describe a little bit about the coffee or dessert. Whatever you say is okay with the server. They're not going to get angry. They're not going to be offended. They're not going to take it personally if you don't want dessert. But there's only really 3 answers to that question. Would you like dessert? You're going to say yes, in which so you sort of move down that pathway. Or you may say, let me think about it, in which case the server may come back and give you some options or tell you the options at that point. Or you'll say, no, we've got birthday cake at home we're going to go have after this. And that's perfectly fine. So the waiter or the server is not trying to sell you the dessert. They don't push hard to sell that. They don't push hard to sell coffee, but they're letting you know it's an option. Often it helps with businesses to think about when you have to talk about the sales side of it, to think less about sales and think about you're giving someone an option. You're making an offer to them that they didn't have. And as a result of that, you're saying, here are my services. This is what they are. And many times it's appropriate to say, this is what the price is. Is that something that would be of interest for you to pursue? And they're only going to give you 1 of 3 choices. Many times it will be no in the business setting, and that's perfectly fine. If you have trouble getting used to no, it's going to be a hard road for you in any business. People will say no. It's not personal. It's not that they dislike you. It's nothing of that nature. There are individuals who, once they get a no from a client, will literally curl up in a ball for a week. It's not a personal thing. Think about it as the server, if that helps you. I know in many folks that's a very useful thing. You're presenting an option. Whatever works best for the client, it's their decision, or potential client, it's their decision to think about. Let's talk a little bit about sustainability and scaling. This is very individualized. What is the vision for your particular business? What would you like your end-of-life doula business to look like? Let's say in 5 years, just as an example. Do you want it to be a nice, small, personal thing where you do all of the work and you interact directly with clients as often as possible? Or do you want to be a multinational organization that services the world? Those are 2 very different things, and sustainability and scaling would be handled differently in each of those areas. So what does success look like for you? That's really important as you start to think about sustainability and scaling. What does growth look like? There is always a limit to growth. No organization can grow forever. So what would growth look like? What do you think is a reasonable place, based on your expertise and experiences at this point, for you to grow into? And that can change over time. One of the challenges you have is your clients keep dying, particularly from those of you that have a hospice background. There is a significant process and system that's designed to collect, so to speak, bring new clients into the system, not with you forever. It's typically a once in a lifetime purchase, so to speak. Not like a grocery store where you have to keep coming back and back and back because you like to eat and you like the food and the services that they supply. So you're always going to be looking to bring in people into your system. You're always going to be looking for that next client. That's part of the nature of your particular business. One of the other things for sustainability and scaling is that we often think as small businesses, and we're a small business as well, that we should behave like some of the big ones that are out there, Microsoft, Amazon. For those of you on the East Coast, I put Wegmans in there. I'm from upstate New York originally, love Wegmans, one of my favorite places. If you want to see business done really, really well, go into a Wegmans supermarket. But as small businesses, we really can't behave like those Wegmans or Amazon or Microsoft. So what is sustainability and scaling for you? The two pictures down the bottom, the one on the left, I want to talk about a business I know. Person is a gutter cleaner, one person business. He loves cleaning gutters, been doing this a long time. He used to work up on cell towers and on the giant wind turbines. And he loves being outdoors and being up high. Cleaning gutters is great for him. Hopefully that's how you feel about working with clients in your field. So he loves this, but he's a one-person business. He's never going to get any bigger. He likes the freedom he has. If the weather's really horrible, he doesn't have to go to work. He can do something else. If he needs time off to be with one of his kids for events that they're having, he takes it. I'm sure he gets paid a lot in cash, which may have some other implications in his life as well. But he is a very sustainable business. He's been doing this a long time, and for him to grow or to scale, he's going to have to hire someone to do scheduling. He's probably going to have to hire a bookkeeper. He's going to have to train people and hire them to do what he does and constantly replenish them. He's probably going to get complaints from some of the folks that don't have the passion for the field that he has. So he's got to do a whole lot more work to try to scale. And he's very happy as a one-person business. Over on the right, I want to talk about a manufacturing business. It's a small manufacturing business. Not a particularly high overhead. Their first year in business, they did $50,000 in revenue. Their second year in business, they did $500,000 in revenue. Their third year, last year in business, they did $1.6 million in revenue. Sounds pretty good, right? As far as growth in businesses. $1.6 million in revenue. They are broke and hemorrhaging money. They have never made a profit any of those years. They have gone through their entire savings. They're maxed out their credit cards, and they have wiped out their retirement plans, and they are still losing money at 1.6 million a year. They scaled, but they are not sustainable at any level. And you talk with the owner, and the owner says, if we could only get to 2 million a year, it's the same problem. One of the things we think about is scaling. We think about the positive growth side. We don't think that our problems and challenges scale as well, and they do. If we don't get those fixed when they're small, they just get bigger and bigger. So they grew tremendously, scaled massively, but it's a completely unsustainable business. So think about those in terms of what makes sense for your vision and what's really realistic for where you'd like to be. Just touch briefly here on some of the common roadblocks, mindset shifts. I'm sure we've all seen something like that bicycle up above. This is how we envision our life will go. This is how we see our business moving forward. Guess what? We all know that's not the way it works. The reality down below it hopefully gives you a little bit of sense. It's not a smooth process. In some places, you feel like you're back at the beginning. And that happens to all of us. That's just life, just the way it goes, and happens in businesses as well. But if you look at that reality on the bottom, you'll see that not only are there dips, but the end point, even though it's a lot of work, is a lot higher than it was on that first very smooth plan. So just be aware that in all of our minds, we have these great plans. Reality may be a little bit different. We've probably already discovered that. Some of the common roadblocks we see in businesses, most likely you can experience these or have experienced them in yours. One's a lack of focus. We've got a lot of things going on. We're not quite sure what to do. We're trying to do everything. And that's not just the aspect of the business, but we're trying to open new areas of revenue for our business. We're thinking about, what if we do this? How about if we do a podcast? How about if I'm on more social media? How about if I do more speaking events? So it can be that lack of focus that can be a challenge. One of the other things that I would bet you anything, there's someone on our call today, as experienced imposter syndrome. This is very, very common. I was talking with a business owner last night. He's been in his business for a while. He knows his stuff. And he said, there are days I just feel like I'm an imposter. That's not unusual. I think most people who are conscientious and really want to do better at what they do often feel that way. That's not an unusual thing. So if you have that kind of a feeling that you really shouldn't be doing what you're doing because you don't know enough, welcome to the club. I think that's most people, and there's an awful lot of that out there. One of the things to think about sort of goes back to that is prioritizing your goals over your clients' goals and needs. If you're too focused on your business and you've lost sight of your clients, the people you're doing this for, what their needs are, how you can help them, that can be a real common roadblock. You get so focused on the marketing, you get so focused on the social media posts that you lose sight of why you're doing this and who the person is you're trying to help. If you're in the position where you're spending more time on the marketing side than you are actually working with people, there's probably some risks there that you want to take a look at. Now, if you're brand new and you have no clients, I get it. That's where you are. But if as you become more established, make sure that you're not overspending time on what you're trying to accomplish and making sure that it aligns with the goals and needs of the clients you really want to be serving. This sort of relates to that overemphasis or worry about attracting clients. When you're new, very common. Even mature businesses have a lot of worry about how to attract clients, particularly in competitive markets. Your markets are not that competitive. You're not Coke and Pepsi, for example, trying to maintain your share of the market. You have a lot of folks that you can develop. Your client development possibilities are enormous. Lots of things you can work on there. So that's opportunities, I would say, for you. Balance that sales with the work you want to do. There will be some days you will do all sales, so to speak. Be that waiter. Just make people offers. Have an elevator pitch where everyone you talk to, you get to share a little bit about what you do. Not because you're just trying to make sales, so to speak, but because you're excited about what you do and you truly believe you have something to offer for someone. Most small business owners, particularly new ones, are overwhelmed. There's just too much to do. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to focus your time. So you're not alone. Work with somebody, can be a family member, can be another doula, to try to figure out how can you focus on what makes the most sense for you. Okay, I want to come back to the slide we talked about earlier. You do not have unlimited time or resources. Hopefully, some of the things we've talked about will give you one or two things to focus on, because I do not want to overwhelm you today, as we just mentioned. Think about a thing or two that may make some sense out of these 5 topic areas that we talked about. There are many things in each of these areas could be a several hour conversation. But hopefully I've given you some things to think about, some things that reinforce what you're already doing, maybe prompted some questions of some things that you'd like to learn more about or might be helpful for you going forward. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions, but before I just drop the slides off, just want to say thank you for this opportunity. And here's my contact information if you're ever interested in reaching out to me. I am happy to talk with any of you on the call today. I think Christelle would tell you I'm relatively easy to interact with, and I'm really happy to try to work with you and see what options you have. The QR code takes you to my email address down below there. That's where that one goes. So just to make it a little bit easier for you. I am going to get rid of the screen share here and see what kinds of questions you have and where we can go from there for you.
Lee, thank you so much for being here today. First of all, I really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
um, the time, the information. I don't want to put anybody on the spot to come up with questions. But so as we open it up and you feel comfortable, go ahead and like raise your hand or just kind of wink at me or whatever you want to do. I could start off so that way we don't have to call anyone out. I could start off with a couple
Please
of
do.
questions, yeah, to get the ball rolling. You mentioned a couple of things that really struck a chord with me about revenue streams and about
Mhm,
being overwhelmed and time commitments. So
mhm,
my question is, what how do you know? What is the advice? What is like the quick 5-second advice for how you know when you have dedicated enough time to something that's not actually serving your business? Like if I have an idea, I have a product, I have a program I'm trying to start, and I know that it takes some time to get things rolling. Like if anybody started a death cafe and you start off with 0 people in a room and then you have to build it to more people. So when is enough enough? Like when do I know it's time to move on?
Some of that is dependent on your individual personality, and it depends on how important that particular thing is to you. Um, let's say Oh, I have a project that my partners and we've been working on for about 2.5 years. That sounds like a very, very long time, but during that 2.5 years, we've done a fair amount of behind the scenes work, and the product today does not look anything like what we identified a year or 2 years ago. So you may want to stick with it a long time, in our case, a couple of years, as long as you're making progress on it. If you're seeing that the client needs you originally thought are different, then you may want to modify to do that. I'd say there's a lot of trial and error in business, and that's okay. And there's a whole bunch of literature out there that says fail fast, fail often kind of thing. Because when you try something and it doesn't work, you've learned from that. All of us, where we are in our life today, have made a lot of errors, and we've learned from a lot of mistakes. Whether that's touching the hot stove when we were a child or doing something in an automobile that scared us a lot. So it's those are learning experiences for us. And there's a point where I think in most cases you can look at it reasonably and say, I've tried as many things as I know how to try in this area. And it's just time. I've run out of options. I've talked to family members or friends that are close to me. I've talked to others, and we really can't find any other ways to do this that make sense. That's probably time to move on. Or if you find that there's just no opportunity for it to begin with. I could think of a business owner I interacted with about 2 years ago, and she was looking for funding to do all kinds around her business. I wasn't sure her business was viable to begin with. I don't think she had a product that could ever be marketed and provided at a level that made sense. And I said, before you do any of that, go out, spend the next month and see if you can find just one customer, one person who said they would buy this service from you. And at the end of the month, she came back and she said, I couldn't find anybody. Nobody has any interest in this. So that may be the case. Now, she could go back and retweak that and modify it some, but the original idea in that case, probably about a month, was enough to say, I can't find any place to take it. So there's no clear answer to that, but when you've run out of ideas, also keep your funding in mind. Don't run out of money. Make sure you have some funds around or can replenish if you need to pivot, go in another direction. Try lots of little things, make lots of changes. Talking to you folks today wasn't even remotely in my mind when we started in the coaching business. So you never know where you're going to end up and what opportunities will present themselves. I don't know if that helped that or not for you.
That did. Thank you.
Okay.
In the chat, okay, I see we got a question in the chat, and then we'll do Cheryl next. In the chat, Nikki asks, she says, imposter syndrome. She says, first of
Yeah,
all, that was very help you. Thank you, Lee. Imposter syndrome is real. Do you have any tips for working through this?
sure. I think it depends on where you're experiencing it and at what level it's an issue. Um, the person the business owner I was talking about last night, he was interacting with some people who are from a much, much larger organization that are CEOs of them. And he didn't have that level of experience, and he was concerned about that. Look at what you bring to the conversation, not as an imposter, but what are you bringing that's new and unique that you have that the other people in the conversation don't? In his case, they're used to working with very large organizations. I can tell you someone who runs a 5,000, 15,000 employee organization has no clue how to run a one-person business like you folks are talking. On the other hand, you folks would be very difficult to translate directly into running a 15,000 person corporation. So wherever you are, you have that expertise more than you realize. So how do you sort of work on that? Pick an area that you're comfortable in, recognize that you're comfortable in it, and take a look at the interactions that you have with people. And when you get to the back end of it, sort of be a little introspective and think about, well, how did that go? Did it go as well as I thought it could? What did I learn from it? And that's the key thing. If you continue to learn, eventually you won't be in it, if you won't feel like an imposter anymore. We will never know everything. The farther we get outside our comfort zone, it's very common to feel imposter syndrome. But the more you stick with your core and you slowly expand that, you are the expert in your area. You cannot, I can't go in and do what you do. I don't have the knowledge, the expertise, the training to do that. I would very much be an imposter, and people would spot that. And I wouldn't be able to stay in business as a death doula. You folks can do that. So focus on your strengths, do what you do well, and realize that you bring something individual to the conversation that no one else in that room is going to bring.
Thank you, Lee.
Mhm.
Cheryl.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Lee, for your wise counsel. I have a couple questions and some things I've heard from folks in the past.
Mhm.
My parents had filed bankruptcy in their medium-sized business 3 times, and I watched that fail before they finally got it right.
Mhm.
And a couple of the things that I've learned over the years in watching them, but also in listening to some other presentations for doulas, is that um, and this might be helpful for other people. I'm wondering about your thought. One suggestion was, A, don't quit your day job, because this is not something that's going to necessarily bring you a full salary, which for me, that's important.
Mhm.
The other thing that these folks suggested is that when you have good common business sense, you have a good accountant and a good attorney behind you to make sure that you don't have any missteps. So with those things in mind, I'm in trying to put together my business plan. Is there a specific cadence that you would recommend with respect to, okay, do A, B, C, and D? So for example, for me, it was things like I'm nailing it down the name for my practice and what getting a website domain to secure that name, getting a business license, getting an attorney and an accountant lined up, and then beginning to um, open the bank accounts and begin to build the business. So, do you have any other kind of formulaic checklists of things we should do before we actually hang out a shingle?
No, I would say in general, the sooner you can hang out the shingle, probably the better off you are. You can spend a lot of time, a year or two, sometimes doing a lot of the legwork and not actually getting to the business part of it. Sometimes it's a suggestion would be go out and get that first client, regardless of where you are or what you have. Get that first one and get a sense of how long that takes. The process that you're describing, I'm going to back up just a second. You talked about your parents and their businesses that didn't make it. That's part of that fail fast, fail often. It takes you some time to figure it out. Sometimes it
Yeah.
can be very costly, which is not the way any of us want to see that go. But they stayed at it and they made modifications. And that goes back to Christelle's question. How do you know when to get rid of it? In those cases, they knew when to get rid of it, but they didn't give up. They made changes and they learned from it and they made modifications, which I think is important for people to consider. You talk about the attorney and the accountant or bookkeeper. I work with a lot of businesses. They have absolutely no money to hire either of those things. Just can't do it. They don't have it. So I think you do as much as you can. Some of that is building that client base as soon as you can, getting some income, and then using that maybe to talk to the attorney as soon as possible if you're in a situation where you need to do that. I very much agree with the comment, don't quit your day job, that you made, and I think Jenny made over there on the side. For those of you that have day jobs, it's really a nice thing to be able to have that guaranteed income as you're thinking about where to go and what to do. One of the drawbacks to keeping your day job is it does limit the time you have to put into your doula business. There's work and there's time to it. So your business will grow slower. There's no doubt about that if it's not your full-time effort. One of the things that you're working on as your business plan, Cheryl, is you're doing some projections of revenue in there, which is also, I would assume that's part of your business plan, which is really good and something that's helpful. You need to look at that. What's a realistic number here? Is this something where you will be able to quit your day job, or is this a nice side gig that you have?
Yeah.
I'm not talking to you specifically, Cheryl. It's sort of a general comment. So, I mean, where is that break point and what would that look like? I see a lot of businesses that don't have bookkeepers, let alone accountants. Other than that once a year during tax time. So it depends on what your resources are, I think, and where you want to go. I don't think there's any specific order to those things.
Okay.
Some of it is what's going to get you up and running the fastest, I think. And I'd go out and get that first client as soon as you can. So you have that experience and you see what's going well. You wouldn't want to build an expensive infrastructure and then have difficulty attracting clients. To bring people, get people move along as far as clients, and then add those other things on. We have a website. It's a really lame website. No one is going out there and choosing a business coach based on their website. No one's going out there and searching, gee, what business coach is in my neighborhood? Our business is 100% referral or people we've directly interacted with, period, full stop. And so it makes a difference in what you need that to be. Now, if you're selling products online, that's a very different type of website. And what you need behind that and the expertise is a little bit different as well. I've talked a lot there. Did I help you at all or not?
You did. You did.
Okay.
Thank you so very much.
Yep. And I see comments coming in on the side. QuickBooks is a wonderful way to do your finances. There's the free version, and of course, there's the add-on versions to that, if things that you'd like to have with that. And I see the comment there, Cheryl, from you, with you're a hospice NODA volunteer too. I think volunteering is a good way to get experience, particularly if you're talking earlier about that imposter syndrome. Just go out there and do that as a volunteer in whatever setting you can. Gain as much experience, gain as many opportunities as you can. When you talk to people who will become your clients, you can say, I've done this for X period of time, or I've done this many, many times, or I've seen situations, I've worked with situations like yours before. That's always comforting and helps you understand their needs and they see that you're a good fit for them. And I'm talking quickly. I don't want to waste your time today. But
Oh,
slow
we
me
are doing
down.
good on time. It's yeah. So thank you so
Okay.
much, Lee. Yeah.
Thank you for your question. Sure.
Well, I do have we had somebody who had to jump off during the presentation that'll catch the rest on the recording. But they wanted to know what is the benefit. Let me just read it. What is the benefit of working with, especially if you are new in this niche profession, or you are getting, you're maybe a year or 2 years or 3 years in, so you're still very much doing all of that work yourself. So, what is the benefit to somebody who's maybe not, their profit margin is not what they're expecting, to work with a business coach and specifically in something that is so neat? Like, how can you help us if you don't know 100% of what we're doing out there in the world?
Sure. That's a really great question. Um, I'm thinking of, and I'm not this person, but there are people who are out there that are CEOs of very, very large organizations, and they jump from one industry to another industry to another industry, industries that they don't have any background in. They understand processes, they understand systems, they understand the large concepts of business, they understand how to work with clients, they understand how to work with the workforce, regardless of the setting that they're in. And that's why they do how they can do that, and why people will often look outside their field. So in your particular case, some of the things that can be helpful to working with someone like myself is that we see things differently. Even though we don't know your world, I can ask you a lot of questions about your world, and I can learn from that, and I can hopefully guide you into things you may not have thought about. I can bring a perspective. You have a very defined world mentally, all of us do, as to what an end-of-life doula does. I don't have that limitation. I can look outside that box, and often helps you to get to conversations and see things you may not be thinking about. Let's go back to Cheryl's question about which one of these things do you start first. You can't do them all. So in a lengthier conversation, you can sort of pin down what makes the most sense and where do you want to be spending that time. Having a business plan is a wonderful thing. The majority of new small businesses don't. But you may very definitely need one of those, depending upon the reasons that you've started to create this in the first place, which is good. So a lot of it is very individualized. Some of the things are the same, but a lot of it is asking questions about why do you do this? I spoke with a business owner who was a healthcare provider who was spending, she was a massage therapist, she has a massage therapy business. She was spending literally half her day on the 5 different online social media sites that she posts multiple times a day to. It seems a little nuts. The first question I ask her is, how many clients do you get out of these various sites? Reasonable question. She said, I have no idea. I don't know if I get any. Well, why are you doing that if you don't know? So sometimes it's a matter of helping you set up some very simple metrics. What do you want to look at? How do you know what works? Sometimes we see we're an outside person to to help people figure out how to interact with someone. If you want to talk to somebody who's way outside your area and you want to structure your phone call, or do you call them or do you send them an email? I actually review emails for people, as weird as that sounds, particularly if sometimes if they don't, if they're getting into an area they don't quite know how to interact with someone. But usually we can help come up with a plan, help prioritize what it is that's important to you, and modify and shift those things going forward. We can look at those issues and challenges that you have on a daily basis. And many times it's helping prioritize and then getting that on a schedule. What do we do next? This is the one thing I want you to work on for the next week, in addition to obviously seeing your clients. So a lot of it is focus and it's helping people, but it's extremely dependent on what the person's challenges are. And every one of us on this call have different challenges and have different strengths. It's a matter of trying to match that up to what it. Did that help you think, Crystal?
Yeah, actually, Lee, the reason I started giggling a little bit is because at about the halfway mark of that explanation, I started to realize that you are describing every first consultation with an end-of-life doula and or an advanced directed facilitator that I've ever had with a potential client.
Yep.
So I get it.
Hmm.
And I thank you for that.
Sure.
And I guess that kind of leads in. So I just wanted to point out so many people were in the chat beyond those questions. I'm very thankful for you being here today
Sure.
and catching the last of the questions in the recording. So if anybody has any other questions, feel free to step on in. My final question, though, is like what does this look like financially? If somebody said, and is there like a contract? Like what are your prices? What are your packages? What are your like what does this look like for somebody who like doesn't even know the help that they need? They just know that they're ready to grow.
And that's a very good way to describe it. People don't know the help that they need. We don't know what we don't know, and that's true of all of us. And one of the things that coaches can often be helpful for is getting people to see some things differently and helping them move forward. Unlike the financial coach I was talking about earlier who wouldn't tell me her prices, I am happy to share that we have a sliding scale, and that's something, and it slides a lot. And that's something that you folks may consider in your line of work too. You may have certain clients you work with. If you're in Success, Arkansas, that's going to be a different price than in Manhattan. So you may want to think about the sliding scale on your end as well. We have some very large clients and they pay the bills. But it also discovered over time that there are the vast majority, over 90% of businesses in the United States have 5 or fewer employees, including the owner. So you folks are in the vast majority of businesses in the United States. And we found that this is an area that is not served well by business coaches. We tend to price you folks out of the market, and that's just from our perspective not a good thing. And one of the reasons that we'll talk with folks like you today and talk with other small startups or very small newer businesses. Our pricing, we run for, if this is your full-time business and this is what you're doing, based on my understanding of all your businesses, we charge $100 a month. And that's as much of us as you need. Often that can be two times a month, once a week. We're available by phone, we're available by email. There is no contract. As long as we're providing value for you, we stick around after that, and you can say you want to move on and goodbye, Lee, at any point in time. That's perfectly fine too. We're the waiter, the server, we're just giving you the option. That's an option. For those of you that are working full-time and or spending full time with your family, we also work with those folks for $50 a month for the same services. The reason we have that is because we know people who are working full-time, they still kept that day job. They do not have the time to put into this as someone who is working full-time and this is what they're doing 30, 40 hours a week. And we also realize that there are people who have families that just don't have the time to commit. So either $100 or $50 a month, no contract, is the price range that we're in. And if anyone would like to talk with me, I'm happy to do that. Complimentary, certainly no charge. Just like to get a sense it's important for us to make sure there's a fit. If there isn't a fit, it just doesn't work well, and there's no point in pursuing down that path. But if people have questions or would like to reach out to me, that's fine. So if none of you reach out to me, I'm not going to be distressed by that. Once again, I'm just the server. I've made an offer, put it out there. You're going to have one of three responses, and that's fine. Ever works best for you.
Thank you so much, Lee. Um,
I just want to reiterate because pricing. Now, for those of you who have a three, this is not the price we charge. But they also need different things.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will take I
Thank
will
you.
take a few seconds to see if anybody else has any additional questions, and I'm just going to kind of talk through a quick little update for those of you who are either catching the end of the recording. Those of you who are here who may not be familiar with the Virginia End of Life Doula Collective, or those of you who are, a couple of our updates and a little bit about us. So we are becoming closer to being an official nonprofit organization who is focused on providing support and guidance for end-of-life doulas, specifically based in Virginia. However, we understand that many of us are a part of many different collectives, and so membership will be open to other partners or supporters of our work. The goal is to help end-of-life doulas in Virginia access resources and the accurate information about things going on specifically in our state. For example, understanding the Virginia Healthcare Decisions Act if doing advanced directives is a service that you offer. Understanding how to partner or to work within our means and within our scope of practice while not upsetting the funeral director profession in this based on the law in the state of Virginia. Knowing where the partnerships are, the other doulas, accurate information about things going on locally to our climate and our clients. So as we're moving forward, we have a lovely board of humans who have been working so hard together over the last few months to put together bylaws, to put together an articles of incorporation, to create this vision of how we are going to best support end-of-life doulas. And I do want to let people know that we are one step closer to opening for membership. We have filed for our nonprofit status. I've been checking my email for I'm waiting to make the official post. When that happens, we will be opening up a membership application. We will be announcing membership dues at that time. Things like this experience here today, the webinars that we offer will be included, an example of what will be included in the membership fee. And there has been discussion, however, that other supporters or guests can come for a nominal fee separate from a membership to participate in future educational opportunities. In addition to that, we're working on quarterly right now, and as we grow, that schedule will change for doula meetups in different regions. So far, we have had a meetup in the Richmond area. We have had a meetup out in the Blue Ridge, Earlysville area with Panorama Green Burial. This summer, we have a couple of online socials planned, so you'll start seeing some advertising for that, for us to just kind of get together and have like a roundtable experience. So if you have any questions about what we're doing at the collective, if you would like to be involved in one way or another, if you would like to be on the waiting list to know when we are open for membership, you can go to our website, and that is vaeold collective.org. I will go ahead and also put that in the chat. Also in the chat is Lee's contact information with his cell number, and we will have that available. I don't know, Lee, if you're going to want this just kind of posted everywhere. We can either send it out with the recording, or you can, after you've watched this recording, you can just reach out to me, and you can reply to that email that's going to come out from the collective, and it will get to one of us. I believe I do have a couple of other board members in the room with me right now. You do not have to come off of mute and talk unless I have forgotten something catastrophic that was supposed to go out. I do not see anybody sounding any alarms. So, with that, thank you, Rami. Thank you so much for being here. And I appreciate everyone, both recorded online, left early. And thank you so much. Everybody have a lovely afternoon. Bye.
Enjoyed it. Nice meeting you folks. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Thank you, Lee.